So today's session will discuss about the IAM. What is the concept of IAM is? IAM stands for like identity and access management. Identity and access management. Say for the AWS resources, it's going to provide authentication and authorization. Like in order to manage AWS services, like AWS is going to provide authentication and authorization. Like here, through the IAM, we are going to control. Okay, so then we want to use like IAM authentication to the users. What is the difference between authentication and authorization? Authentication means whether the user is valid or not is going to be defined as the authentication. And what is the concept of authorization is the permissions what that user is going to get is called as authorizations. Authentication means whether that's a valid user or not. Okay, so now here for the identity and access management, and the users can securely control the AWS services, resources. Okay, so we have the IAM. Okay, so that's like the service very, very important. Even before using EC2, VPC also, first we need to create IAM. Okay, so now I hope everyone may created one account. That account is called as root account. Okay, so then on the root account, we are not going to log in for the multiple times. Only 1 or 2 times we need to log in as the root account. After like login as the root account, what AWS is telling is create the IAM users, and from the second time onwards log in as the IAM users itself. Okay, so that means here is going to provide centralized control also for the AWS resources, and we can give like a authorizations or permissions we can define. Okay, so then what users can be accessed, resource level, policy level, all these we are going to define. And billing wise, if I create the users, there are no charges for IAM. There are no charges for the IAM. And coming to the building blocks of the IAM, so now here we have the users, groups, and roles. Okay, so now IAM user is a single identity kind of thing, like where to the persons or application that want to interact with the AWS services. Okay, so now a single identity. Okay, so then to the users, or mostly we are going to give to the users. Okay, and sometimes even for the applications also we can give. And those IAM users can interact with the AWS services like passwords they can access, or access keys also, or all these days we have username, password kind of thing like this we are going to define. And what are those IAM policies also we'll discuss. Those are the permissions. Okay, so what are those IAM policies also we'll discuss. Then the collection of users. Okay, so group always the advantage is instead of individually managing, we have a collection of like our group of users are there, and we are defining those permissions to those group. Okay, and we are getting the permissions not to the single user in the large scale kind of environment. Okay, so management individually the users are little challenging. That is the reason we are going to manage groups. That is going to manage the groups. Okay, so equivalence kind of permissions we want to attach to the users. Then in that use case, we are going to attach the groups for that. Okay, next one is we have the IAM roles. IAM roles are very, very powerful. Okay, so I want to give the temporary kind of permissions. Okay, I don't want to give the, say suppose user may be a permanent employee. Say suppose today 100 employees are joining in our company. I may create the users and the groups. The groups may be divided based on the project. Say all are ITCM kind of thing, or CT, Bank of America. Like this based on the projects we can give, or maybe department wise also. Like these all the sales guys, these all the HR guys, these all the IT guys, support guys. Okay, system admins like this, even we can differentiate as the group wise also. That is up to us how we are going to give, or we may give developer kind of thing, like maybe L2 admin, L3 admin, monitoring kind of like this also we can divide them. Okay, so now here we are going to manage the similar kind of permissions I want to attach to the users. Then I'm going to use the groups. Okay, so then I don't want to give the permanent kind of access. Temporarily, I want to give the access. Okay, then I'm going to design IAM kind of roles I'm going to create. Okay, so temporarily I want to give the permissions, but users are mostly our employees. Okay, so we want to give the permanent kind of thing. Okay, so now here those like maybe for some time I want to give the some permissions like this temporarily access or one-time kind of access like this if we want to give, and I don't want to give any credentials also. For the user, we have the credentials. For the group, we don't have the credentials, but similar kind of properties we can give. And when the user log in with their credentials, automatically what are the group permissions we have, those we are getting. Okay. Then cross account access meaning is I have one AWS account. In another AWS account, I want to access my EC2 instance or database or S3 bucket. Okay. So networking wise, we may require VPC peering, but that resources permissions by default we don't get. Okay. Then we are going to give the cross account access also we are going to provide. And one more feature what we will use is service roles. So what is the concept of the service roles, sir? Okay, so then I have an EC2 instance. In my EC2 instance, I want to give the permissions for like another service. My EC2 instance want to access CloudWatch or maybe like I want to access S3 bucket. Then I'm giving the permissions. I'll tell one example. You are installing maybe Instagram on your mobile. Your Instagram required the permissions, right? Like maybe for the camera or maybe like for the messages, okay, or maybe like gallery. So like this here we are going to give maybe for maps. For those you are giving the permissions, but that's not to the users we are giving. Okay, so one service want to access another service. Okay, so then we are giving the roles also. So now here we have three things: user, then we have groups, and we have the roles. Okay, so mostly to the single identity, we are going to give the users. Mostly that's maybe a person, not mandatory a person also. Sometimes to the applications also we are giving, and we'll get the credentials. Okay, and using those credentials, they're going to log in. Then group, similar kind of users, we are giving the permissions at the group level. And whenever the user login, that permissions we are getting. And the third one is IAM role. And if you give the IAM role kind of thing, like what we are going to do is, like I want to give the temporary access either to the same account or to the other account or from maybe from other app also we want to give. Okay, so temporarily we want to give the access. Then I'm going to create the IAM roles. Okay, so then we have very, very important is IAM policy. So what is the concept of IAM policy? Or the policy defines what are the permissions I want to give. Policies defines I want to give the like in the JSON format I'm going to define those permissions. Okay, so whatever the permissions we have given, those permissions we are going to get. Mostly we have two types of policies. One is managed policy and the second one is inline policy. If I go for the managed policies, mostly AWS is going to create those policies. There are more than 1,000+ policies are there, and those policies we are going to use. So that's like that policy is in which format they're going to define. The policies are in the JSON kind of format. Okay, so JSON kind of format we are going to keep. Okay, so now here each statement will have either allow or any kind of thing and what type of action we can do on which resource we want. So suppose here we have like on the S3 bucket and bucket name all those here the bucket name is that example hyphen bucket. Okay, and I want to give the permissions Like this here, we can give the which type of action, like maybe list bucket or put object. Like this, we can give the permissions. Okay, if I give Denny, that user can't perform if I attach this policy. Okay, so now here we are going to give effect is allow or Denny and action, like which type of action we can perform and which resource we want to do it. Okay, so on which resource we need to perform those operations, we need to discuss. Okay, so then again we have two types of permissions we can give. The policies wise, we have two types of policies. One is managed policy that is given by AWS itself, and the second one is inline policies. Inline policies directly we are attaching to IAM users. It's a single kind of thing. But these managed policies we can attach to more number of users and groups we can give. To the more number of users or groups we can define that. Okay, then the permissions we can give identity basis to the user or group we are giving. Resource is, so suppose I'll tell one example. I have given the EC2 full access. Then all the EC2 instances I'm getting. But if I go for the resource base, only one particular resource only I want to give, not to all the resources. Mostly at the S3 level, if I give the S3 bucket access means all the buckets, I don't get that. Okay, so mostly resource level, we need to give the policies. Okay, that means I don't want to give all the buckets like this. I don't want to manage. Then I'm going to use identity base. No, only one specific resource I want to attach. Then I'm going to use resource-based policies I'm going to attach. That can be attached directly to the resource itself. Okay, so in which use case I'll go for the identity basis, mostly the managed policies, mostly at the service level. If I go for the EC2, for EC2 itself, there would be 15 to 20 different kind of services. Okay, and if I give S3 read-only access or administrator access, if I give to one user, he will get everything. It's almost equal to the root account kind of thing. Okay, and we can create our own customized policies also. And inline policies, directly we can embed it with single user group. Okay, so we don't reuse. Only for that particular user itself, we are going to give. Okay, and if I go for the identity kind of thing, for all the S3 bucket, like I'm going to give that resource-based policy, that particular user also I'm going to enforce. Say here, the user John I have added. Okay, so that means that has been integrated only to that John itself. Okay, yeah. Any doubts on that? And permission boundaries also we want to delegate only specific servers on S3. Like this also we can, this also we'll discuss. SCPs also we'll discuss. Today we'll focus more on IAM users, groups, roles, and permissions or policies. And the ACLs also we have, but now AWS not recommended to use ACLs. But for the S3 and VPC level we have, but don't get confused with NACL is different, ACLs are the different. Okay, at the S3 level we can give the ACLs also. Okay, I can give the permissions also, but AWS not recommended to use the ACLs at the S3 level also. Okay, and the session policies are maybe only one-time kind of access or security token kind of services if you want to give. Then I'm going to give the session policies also. Only one time I want to give the access like this. And what are the inline policies? What are those inline policies? So directly we are embedding to
Kubernetes.
to the users or groups or roles. If you are attaching managed policies can be reusable, but directly that principle itself we are adding and we are attaching to that. Okay, in that use case we are going to use inline policies. So we are going to manage the inline policies. And what is the meaning of multi-factor authentication? What is the meaning of multi-factor authentication? So automatically we log in with your username and password, but we are getting one more, like maybe say suppose we can call as OTP kind of thing, or Google Authenticator would be there, or Microsoft Authenticator. So based on that, we are going to log in. Or some companies will give hardware kind of MFA device also they will provide. Okay, so that means that device will get the like a OTP kind of thing, and that they need to enter. Even every time when I'm logged into IA root account, so previously they used to give some days, like maybe 15 days or 30 days. It's mandatory. We need to enable MFA. Even not only for the root user, for IAM users also, it's mandatory we need to enable MFA because it provides additional level of security. And even if your credentials have been compromised also, like AWS is going to provide security for those. Okay, so AWS is going to provide the security for those. So that is the reason it's mandatory we need to enable MFA need to be enabled. Okay. Any doubts on this? And there are some of the best practices also. Say here, most of the companies are following one principle that is called as no trust policy. Okay, say no trust policy. Okay, so that means so suppose he may be employee or a higher level kind of employee also. Okay, but definitely we need to verify that user, say suppose he is a CEO, we can't authenticate or authorize. Like this we shouldn't do. And each and every time if we log in as 10 times also, it's mandatory we need to, okay, so we need to follow. Most of the companies today are implementing this kind of policy. What is the zero trust policy is? Like never trust, always verify. Okay, so never trust, always verify. Say he is a higher level like vice president. We shouldn't trust anyone in the giving the access to the AWS resources. And one more principle what we need to use is, okay, so what zero trust is telling? Never trust, always verify. Okay, so for everyone we need to verify those. Okay, and the second principle is always the users need to give the least privilege. Unnecessarily don't give more permissions to the users. Okay, so that permission also we need to follow. Always we need to follow the principle of least privilege. So don't give the user, say suppose for every user, don't give admin kind of access. For every user, don't give admin kind of access. So it depends upon your requirement. Exact permissions we need to do. And say for the instances also, always better to give IAM roles. That means instead of us, like instance, I'm giving the permission. And to the important users, some companies for every user also will give at least to the important, say suppose I have some of the admins, I given a lot of access to the EC2 instances, I have a lot of sensitive data to the S3. At least for those privileged users where I have given more permissions, better to enable the MFA for them. Okay, so better to enable the MFA also. And what we need to do is rotate our credentials also regularly. So we need to rotate our credentials also. If we rotate the credentials, what is going to happen? Like maybe every company will have the principle, like for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, we need to rotate our credentials. Okay, so we need to rotate our credentials also. Okay, so then like always better to use managed policies. And from where we can monitor all the IAM activity, auditing can be done from Cloud Trial. So which of the users are trying to log in, all those details we need to manage from the Cloud Trial. Say every week, maybe keep like maybe auditing need to be required. If anything additional things or some misuse the resources or someone try to access other like production servers without having the permissions, you can ask them why they're trying to access. It's maybe restricted, but you try to ask them. Okay, so you try to ask them. Okay. Then before applying the policies also, we need to check that what are the like resultant set we are getting, that evaluation logic also we need to apply. Okay, so then even we need to use IAM access analyzer and IAM credentials report. Okay, these all the reports also from the monitoring wise we need to check that. Okay, so we'll create S3 buckets while discussing, and the cross account also for one EC2 instance user. I want to give the access to another S3 bucket. So those also we'll discuss. IAM, we have the like CLI commands also we'll discuss. And when we go for IAM, there is no other price. Okay, so that users, whatever the resources they may be, that users created EC2 or VPC, for that they're going to charge the money. Okay, so but we need to manage as per our requirements. Okay, so then like here, always enable the multi-factor authentication, and roles are recommended to give the temporary access. Okay, and don't give root access. Never log into the root access for the second time also. Okay, so always log in as the IAM users itself. And don't share your enterprise credentials or IAM credentials with anyone. Okay, so never share those credentials. Okay, and always when you are giving the privileges to your team members or other teams also, like we need to follow the principle of always give the least privilege. They may ask a lot of things, but depends upon the project. Okay, so always least privilege, because if you do anything wrong, who given the permission also is like he don't have that access, but you provided that access, you should be responsible. Hence, very strict on that. Always use the principle of least privilege itself. Always use the principle of least privilege. Okay, then always recommended to use IAM roles and keep the rotation of the keys, because even if your credentials have been shared to someone, okay, so if you are rotating those, that new credentials, they may not get that. Okay, and the permission boundaries will discuss. And always recommended, instead of creating custom policies, better to use like managed policies. So always recommended to use the managed policies also is recommended. Okay. So then group that users also. Don't keep individual users, is little challenging, because we may have some thousands of employees also we may need to do. Okay, so then we need to do cloud trial also, we need to enable, and strong password policy. Okay, and most of that restricting, and cloud watch, cloud trial, and even some lambda kind of automation also will use what are the operations are happening on the IAM level, and what are the things are creating also we will discuss. Okay, so then we need to use AWS organizations and SCPs also. We'll discuss this. So as of now, we are dealing with one single account. In that, we have different users and groups. But some companies may have 10 different companies also. For each account, they have AWS account. All that we can manage through organizations. And the global policies we can control through SCPs, service control policy. As of now, what we are discussing is we have one AWS account. In that account, we are delegating the administrative rights to multiple users and groups. Okay, so then always better to use the tagging also. So what are those tagging also we'll discuss. So even in the EC2 instance also we can give the name is one of the tag we have given, and project like that. If you give the tag, okay. So what is the main advantage is in the large scale infrastructure, more governance, and even we can give the permissions also, and the budgeting also we can manage through the tagging. Say a lot of companies have the mandatory rule, they need to enforce the tagging. And if the tagging is not applied, we are going to discover at the time of instance provisioning itself, and we are going to delete that kind of resources also. Means all these days we created the instances, we didn't give the tags as per our company, but still that instance is running. But in this use case, what is going to happen is, if I don't provide the tag, what's happening? So we will write some Lambda kind of functions and we'll delete that instance also. Means in the real time, like the companies will have that kind of automation also. And if you don't give the proper tagging, what's happening to that resource is, maybe one Lambda function, something will delete that resource. Okay, mandatory, we need to create the tags. And we have the different type of IAM roles. So what is the meaning of service role is, for another service, I want to give the access. That means I'm not giving to the user. I have one like maybe EC2 instance. EC2 instance want to execute Lambda, or Lambda function want to access one S3 bucket. Okay, so like this here, I'm giving the permissions to. I'm giving the permissions to the AWS service, not to the user. Then I'm creating a service role. Okay, so that like EC2, Lambda, ECS want to access other services. I said the example, right? Instagram is one app, but in your mobile to other apps also we are giving the permissions. Okay, so then the second type is service linked. Okay, so automatically that depends upon the SCPs or some service level. Automatically we are getting those permissions. Okay, so that's automatically, if you apply that permission, we are getting. Okay, and the cross account role is very, very important from the interview wise also and hands-on wise also. Like we may need to give the access to one S3 bucket in one account to the another S3 bucket user, we need to give the permissions. Or maybe in our company itself, I have multiple organizations and we have the multiple accounts. I want to give the cross access also. That's also how to do it. Very, very important. After S3, we'll discuss this. Okay, so this is the mandatory use case people will ask us. One account EC2 or one account AWS user want to access
Dani,
S3 bucket, which is from the another AWS account. Okay, so from the another account, we need to give the access for that. Okay, so then like federation kind of, what is the meaning of federation is mostly with the external kind of users like this, we are going to give the federation kind of roles and all those, and single sign-on also. That means he is not our company employee, but he is our maybe in the B2B kind of use case, he is my dealer kind of thing. He is not my company employee, but I want to give some access to my applications or my application data also. At that moment also we'll give those. and he also want to log in, then I want to give him single sign-on kind of things. Okay, so for federation kind of things also we need to give, and maybe from the thought, they're not coming to my account, they're already verified in their login itself. Okay, that means in their third party itself, they have like a external way itself, they have authenticated already. Again, I don't authenticate them. Okay, so that's also we are going to give that kind of application access also we may need to give for the SaaS kind of applications, all those. Okay, so that's also like already they may log in with, say suppose if we go for the one example, what I can tell is we have Insta, we may log in with the Google kind of, because Google is a third party for us external identity. But those users, I want to give the access to my application that is in my AWS. Okay, so for this kind of use cases, we need to use identity federation, we need to use. And organization level also, we need to give the permissions. So these all the different type of roles we are going to give. Okay, so these are the different type of roles we are going to give for those. So in this very, very important is the user. Okay, so the user group and roles are very, very important. Sorry, it saved wrongly. Okay, so I'm sharing this. That is small typo. I think it is in the use, it is telling. Yeah, I shared that one. Everyone go through that. That document go through once. Okay, so now here, what is cloud trial? The cloud trial is used for the auditing purpose, what the administrative activities has been performed on that AWS level. We are going to do it through cloud trial. Okay, and CLI, I'll explain. So what is the advantage of CLI is instead of using GUI, we can control through this like a GUI. And we have one thing we need to finish, that is called as permission boundaries. So permission boundaries are one of the advanced feature. Okay, so then again internally it's going to create one more virtual kind of boundary we are setting. IAM itself is setting those, but internally also virtually it's going to provide a fencing kind of thing across the IAM user. Okay, so now I have given an IAM user allow everything, but like but permission boundary can tell only EC2 actions are allowed. Okay, so when we want to do the delegation kind of administration, I want to give more roles, but I don't want to give over permissions. Then I'm setting the permission boundaries, and even at the SCP level also, that means at the organization level also, we need to control them. Okay, so that means I'll tell, say suppose I given the EC2 full access, then I can perform all the operations on the EC2 instance. But in the permission boundary, I may terminate the instance or stop the instance. I'll keep a permission boundary. Okay, so that means I don't want to give that permission. Then even I given the EC2 full access, okay, but that user can't terminate or stop or start kind of instances I can restrict. Okay, so identity, the policy is defining what are the actions that user can perform. But what the permission boundary is telling is, in that action also, what are the things allowed and what we can't do also we can specify. using the permission boundary. And to the role or to that permissions, we can attach that permission boundary. Okay, but definitely we need to use integrated with our permissions or policies. We need to use directly. They don't give the permissions. Okay, and always at the SCP level, that means organization level itself, whatever the permissions we have, only those we are going to get it. Okay, so then coming to IAM. So now here we have this AWS management console. So here we have the IAM and so we have the IAM dashboard. In the left side, we have say user groups, users, roles. Okay. So these from this we can create the user groups we can create, users we can create, roles, policies. Okay. So then root user has enabled the MFA also. So what is going to happen is, and it's not recommended to give the access keys also. I will explain. Like whenever we created a user, maybe IAM user or root user also, we'll have the console access. So in the console access, what we are getting is, so we have a username and password, and for the root, we may have MFA also have been enabled. But for the programmatic access, so for the programmatic access, okay, so we are getting access key and secret key. Okay, so how that looks also will get today. Okay, so that means whenever I want to use maybe CLI or any of the APIs or SDKs, okay, or we want to use a Terraform kind of tool. In all these, we need to use those access keys we need to specify. Okay, so what we have, we don't have the username and password. What we have, so in the programmatic access, what we have, so we'll have the access key and the secret key. It's little secure than your username and password kind of thing. Only that for the console access, we are going to use username and password. And whenever I want to log in as a root user, when I log in as the root user, okay, so that username and password is enough. But when I log in as the like IAM user, okay, so we need the three things. We need to know the account ID, then IAM username, then we'll have the password. Okay, but if we want to manage them through the programmatic access or maybe through CLI or any third-party tools, we don't use the username and password. What we are using in this use case, what we are using?
Access key and secret key.
Access key and secret key. For every user also, we can, even for the root user also, we can get that access key and secret key. But AWS is strictly telling, don't use those access key and secret key of the root and don't share root account access to anyone. Okay, always use the IAM users itself. Okay, so then in the AWS management console, say we have the we have the IAM user groups we have. Say here we have the users and user groups. And if you go to the users, we can add our whatever the users we want to add, we can create a user. And always we need to give the least privilege. Say suppose I'll create one user here. So I've given Srikanth is the user account. Okay. And I'm providing the access to management console also. I want to create either through identity center or through IAM user also will give. So as of now, I have used an IAM user. Then that password for that user we can set as a auto-generated password or custom password. Whatever you want, you can set it. And strong password policy also should be there. And user must create a new password means assume I'm the IAM user I'm creating, right? But user will reset his password. Okay. Then here, these are the very important things. Here we are giving the permissions. Okay. So now here we can give either add user to the group or copy permissions or attach policies. So add a user to the group is an enterprise use case. Means automatically we need to add that user to the group. We need to add means before itself first in the real time we need to create the groups or users.
Users, sir.
Yeah, first groups need to be created. As per our company policies, what are the groups we are designing? All that groups we need to create, and to that groups we need to give the permissions. Okay, so to the groups, we need to define the permissions to that. Okay, so then add a user to the group or copy permissions. In which use case you will go the copy permissions is already X user is there. Then to the Y also I want to give the for the Y user also I want to give the same permissions. Then I'm going to give copy permissions. Otherwise, attach policies directly. So almost we have 1376 policies and most of them are the AWS managed policies. So most of them are the AWS managed policies here we have. And here I'm going to use EC2 like this. Say in the EC2 also again we have lot of policies we have. So almost in the EC2 also will get 15 to 30 policies. And if I give the EC2 read-only access, I can't create any instance. Okay. I may see the what are the instances we have, but I can't create any instance. I'm giving here the permission only EC2 read-only access. And I can set the permission boundary also, but that's an optional as of now. To the user, I'm giving that permission. Now, I given one more permission also. I got what are the permission is. I given the password reset kind of option also to the user. Then here we have this login that IAM user need to log in using these credentials. I can log in here. I'll go to any of the private mode. Now I need to give this is the account ID. Otherwise, even normally also when I'm logging that IAM user, what we need to know is, we need to know that account ID. That's a 12-digit account ID. And even to, if it is little tough to remember, we can create an alias also will create. How to create that alias also we'll discuss. Then I'm going to create an IAM username here. So my username is Srikanth, and whatever the password I set, with that password I'm going to log in. Then it's mandatory user need to reset that password. Okay, then I'm going to enter my old password. I'm going to enter the new password. It's going to match also. Then I'm going to confirm that password change. Then I'm going to log in with that user. Then here I'll go to say here itself, I'm not getting that applications because only for the EC2, I got the root permission, sorry, read-only permissions. For the other things also, I don't get the permissions also. Now I'll try to launch an instance. Anyhow, it won't create. At the time of Amazon Linux, I choose T3.micro. Here itself, I'll get that because I don't have the permission to create a key pair also. Yeah, because I'm not allowed to perform that operation. Previously, we don't get all that right because we done through root user. Okay, so I hope you got it right. Say if you give that user maybe easy to full permissions, then that user can do that operation. Okay, so then again I'll come to root access. I'll go to groups and we can get that credentials also. Say suppose here I'm going to use the user groups and I'm going to create a group now. I'll create a group called DBA admins. So I have some of the database kind of admins we have, and I can add the users also to that group. But as of now, I have only one user. Otherwise, in the next option, while creating the users also, we can give the permissions. Then here I'm going to give all the RDS related permissions I want to give to them because those are the database admins. I want to give the full access I want to provide for RDS or I want to give the full access to Elastic Cache also. Elastic Cache also is one of the, but like this also is not a best practice to give all the permissions also. There even if you give also, we can restrict that some permissions which you don't want to give using a permission boundary, we can set that. So as of now, I created DB admins and I added one more user. I'll try to add. So I'll create one user called James and the console access also if we want to give, we can give the console access. Okay, so then I'm going to give the programmatic access also we are giving. But identity center is a new method. I'm as of now, I'm creating the normal user. Next time we'll go for identity center. Then you can keep the auto-generated password or custom password. Anything is fine. Anyhow, once the password we got, user must change that password or that is one of the best practice. And here what I'm doing is to the James, I'm automatically adding to DB admins. Then whatever the permissions I have given EC2 like a full access, Elastic Cache full access, all those permissions we are getting to the users. Okay. So like this here we are going to attach to the groups. And that group permissions I'm giving to the users. Then like once I create that and I can give the permission boundaries also. Then here that user can download in the form of that CSV file. I'm admin, I'll download that James credentials and he's a new employee in our project or team. Then I'll send an email to that James user. And using that credentials, he's going to log in or what are the permissions he's getting. And he may be raising the tickets also. Say suppose we want even like networking and S3 buckets also have been allocated to him. But by default, you don't get the access to that. Then what he will do?
Raise the ticket.
Raise the ticket for us requesting for the
to get access.
Yep, access, and according to that, we are going to give that permissions. But always we need a manager or maybe higher level approval also is required for that. Okay, then here we are going to create the roles also. Say by default, some of the inbuilt service related roles we got. Okay, but I want to give for the AWS roles I want to give. So now while creating the role, either service related or AWS account related, web identity for the federation kind of things. Okay, so then here I'm going to use AWS service. And to what service I want to give is to the EC2 instance. I have an EC2 instance, and on behalf of me, the EC2 instance want to access maybe one Lambda kind of thing. Okay, that means I'm giving that EC2 instance, I'm giving the permission to access Lambda. Okay, so Lambda, which access I want to perform, those all I need to specify. Okay, so that Lambda role I'm going to choose. Okay, this Lambda role I'm going to choose, and these need to be attached to my EC2 instance. Have chosen EC2 Lambda with that role. Then I'm going to create that role. So once that role has been created, so now what I need to do is I need to go to EC2 instance, and at the time of launching the instance, like remaining all the options are same. So what I need to choose is I need to go to advanced details, that role I am attaching to my EC2 instance. That means this instance will get the permission for
Accessing the database.
for the Lambda, we are going to get the permission. For the Lambda, we are going to get that permission. When I create that EC2 instance, automatically that I'm not giving to the user here. On behalf of users to the EC2 instance, to launch a Lambda function, I'm giving the permission. Or Lambda want to access S3 bucket, then I'll choose role for Lambda to access S3 buckets. I'm going to give the permissions. Okay. Then here I'll again come. I'm not creating that instance, and even we can manage multiple accounts. All those also from the IAM identity center also we can control. And access analyzer also is one of the tool, like we'll discuss all these also. Then like today mainly focusing on the user groups or users roles policies, and almost we have most of them are the AWS managed policies. We have policies are nothing but the permissions what we can give, and either identity based we can give the permissions, or resource level also we can give the permissions, and most of them have been created by the AWS managed, and even we can create our own custom policy also. Okay, so either through the visually through GUI we can create, or if we have the JSON kind of knowledge directly to the JSON also we can give. And here I can give maybe I want to give EC2 one, and what are the allowed actions I can perform all those actions. Right? You can create I want to give all EC2 actions. Okay, so like this here, all that, so otherwise you want to give any restrictions kind of thing, all those we can create. So this custom policy also you can attach to. So your own custom policy also attach it to
Groups.
groups. Okay, so that is also Like, and even we'll create, like our own inline also through the JSON, we can create those and we create a custom policy. And that policy also at the time of role or group level, we can give the permissions. We can give the permissions we can give it. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So these all try to do. Then once we discuss the S3 buckets, remaining services, EKS level, all these indirectly we are learning IAM, cross account access, identity center, all those we'll discuss going forward.
So Srikanth, yesterday we need a
I'll
video
share
to
that.
record.
I'll share that recording. Okay.
And please send the video to us.
I'll send you by end of the day. I'll send you.
Sir, if we want to ourselves as a IMA user, means we need to give ourselves for total access of
Because even
administrator
if you log in as a root account also, that's not a best practice. Create a IAM user itself.
with other name or same name, sir.
With your name, you can create.
So we are on that we are giving to
Mostly root
administrator
account may be
access.
created by the company.
Okay.
You are the admin, right? You create it. So for the company purpose, you don't create your account, right?
I mean to ask
In our
to
scenario,
get all access.
we are creating the root account. We are creating, but in the real time, your company will create the root account.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then the first step, you are the first admin. Then for you, create an IAM user and later delegate the permissions also to the other users also.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Sure.